Guess what? The political machinations to control your life and increase your cost of living through the insane climate narrative have reached the level of Kafkaesque. Get this. The hardcore leftist mayor of Boston recently issued a decree that all future government building projects will have to be done without the use of so-called fossil fuels. Hi everyone, I'm Gardner Goldsmith for MRCTV. The good old days. The days of the Paleolithic and the Neolithic, when our distant ancestors sheltered in caves and cowered beneath animal skins to keep warm, when they cooked over open flame and tried to maintain the fire in order to stop the encroaching fingers of Jack Frost. Well, given Democrat Boston Mayor Michelle Wu's new decree, one might think she was a fan of those days as well, because she seems to want any construction she can control to be less like actual construction and more like living in natural caves. Except, of course, Wu likely would try to shut down the campfires of those Paleolithics and Neolithics in order to fight her mythical enemy, anthropogenic climate change. According to the New American's James Murphy, Wu courageously chose the end of July to decry anthropogenic climate change and to use the typical summer heat as a backdrop to her new executive order banning, get this, use of fossil fuels in all future city construction and renovation projects. Quote, in the latest example of climate insanity, Boston Mayor Michelle Wu has issued an executive order banning the use of all fossil fuels in new city building projects. The order also extends to major renovations of existing city buildings. Wu announced the order on July 31st. One wonders why Wu didn't wait until January and offer her decree in, say, a construction site where union workers need fossil fuel-based space heaters to keep themselves and their fossil fueled equipment functioning in the cold. And perhaps someone close to Wu can let her know that even the workers' so-called electric tools likely are powered via plants that were constructed and that operate thanks to varying degrees of fossil fuel use. Quote, one big caveat, projects currently under construction, under procurement, or simply in the design stage are exempt from the new rule. But going forward, any new civic building or any renovation in Boston will be built without the aid of fossil fuels. As they'd say in Boston, that's wicked cool, guy. It looks like this is an opportune time to move all the government offices into perhaps an untenanted subway line, aka a modern cave, where, as users of geothermal heat systems know, the average temperature usually hovers around 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Of course, Wu doesn't see what she's doing as regressive. It's a great leap forward, you might say. Quote, week after week, we see the signs of extreme heat, storms, and flooding that remind us of a closing window to take climate action, Mayor Wu said in explanation. The benefits of embracing fossil fuel-free infrastructure in our city hold no boundary across industries and communities, and Boston will continue using every possible tool to build the green, clean, healthy, and prosperous future our city deserves, end quote. Of course, Wu doesn't mention that none of the so-called extreme weather events that she mentioned are actually out of line with typical weather patterns going back centuries. She neglects to mention that there have been fewer named hurricanes, yes, fewer in the past few years than during the average of all satellite observed years, although propagandists in the climate cult, particularly in the UK, want to give names to non-hurricanes. So that, yeah, you got it, reporters can start claiming that X year had Y many more named storms, even though those storms would not previously have fallen into the scientific slot to be named. And Wu neglects to mention that costs of natural disasters grow higher as the inflated money supply drives up prices of all things. And it gets even more delightful because this Mayor Wu decree not only comes wrapped in climate cult wokeism and pie-in-the-sky fantasies, aka complete blindness about building construction materials and the energy those use and require, it comes with a super awesome tie-in to economic, racial, environmental, and climate justice. Kind of like what the EPA has been revealed to have spent billions promoting recently. Yes, indeed. Anything to sell the canard. Quote, "The new declaration is in line with Boston's desire to be a Green New Deal city. In its charter, the Boston Green New Deal Coalition describes itself as a network of groups and individuals committed to addressing economic, racial, environmental, and climate injustice in Boston using an anti-racist approach, and by using other people's tax cash, of course." Does that agenda include targeting people on Mayor Wu's infamous political enemies list? And will Wu place people on that list if, say, they happen to mention the reality that virtually nothing can be built without fossil fuels utilized in the process, all the way to the housing and feeding of the workers who do the construction? Unless Wu plans on having people sit on tree limbs and work in caves lit by fireflies, she's not going to magically grow these offensive shrines to government she might like to see rise during her stint running the great and wonderful city of Boston. Meanwhile, taxpayers will be forced to pay more for the construction, even as the dark prospect of higher costs drives potential developers to work with other municipalities that might be more conducive to traditional and functional building practices. Concludes Murphy, quote, "Fossil fuels are used heavily in the creation of glass, concrete, and steel. Will those materials be banned from Boston's civic building projects? Perhaps Wu can hire paper wasps or bees to make the government buildings." After all, in her collectivist climate cult worldview, we all should be part of a giant hive. So, of course, the motif will be more than fitting, fellow worker bees. What isn't fitting is how conceited, arrogant, and disrespectful politicians like Wu actually are, and how willing they are to play with other people's money as if they're playing with their own toys. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Thanks for caring about freedom. Please visit us at mrctv.org. That's mrctv.org, where you can see what the whole team is doing. And of course, you can go to the MRC Store to get great items. And while you're there, please consider donating to the Media Research Center in its 36th year. Your donations really help. You can also find us on Facebook. Everything is always hopping on the Facebook MRC TV page. We're on TikTok, on Instagram, and of course, we're on Twitter. And you can find us on YouTube, but they do censor us, so just be careful there. We welcome people at Rumble, where they don't censor us. Everything is loaded at Rumble. Thanks so much, everyone. If you want to find me, I'm on Gab as @GardnerGoldsmith, and I'm on Twitter as @GardGoldsmith. For MRC TV, I'm Gardner Goldsmith.